Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to video or lecture number 7. As I indicated earlier on, I'm going to try and focus on some high yield areas. These are areas which bring some difficulties to some students, and I'm just going to try and explain them in the simplest way forward. I'm going to look at 3 key areas. We're going to look at quality assurance, and also we're also going to look at theories of management, principles of management, delegation as well. I'll start with question number 1, is seen on the diagram. Define the following terms: quality assurance as well as quality assessment. Now, the definition of quality assurance is a systematic, ongoing, and continuous review, analysis, and evaluation of the level of compliance with the level of standards set. Quality assurance is a systematic, ongoing, and continuous review, analysis, and evaluation of the level of compliance with the level of standards set. In simple, what quality assurance is something like we, as an organization, as a department, you put up standards. This is the way in which you do work. So when we put a standard, for example, how do we write a nursing care plan? So part of quality assurance is having a systematic and ongoing continuous review of how people are writing the nursing care plan, analyzing the way they are writing them, evaluating the way they are writing them, and checking to see if these nurses are complying with the standard that has been written. A very good example is, as a sister in charge, you are going to write a model of how a nursing care plan is supposed to be done, and you put it on the station. So what it means is every nurse who is going to come and write a nursing care plan, they have to use that example as a model. So part of quality assurance is reviewing or checking how nurses are writing their nursing care plan using that model of the nursing care plan that you have written as a standard. So basically, you are going to assess the quality of the nursing care plans that they are writing based on the one that you have written, which is the standard. So it will be a systematic, ongoing, and continuous review, analysis, and evaluation of the level of compliance with the level of a standard set. So the standard set is the one that you have written, and the compliance, you are now comparing, are they complying, are they writing the way you want them to write? Then we have a definition of quality assessment. Quality assessment is the data collection and analysis through which the degree of conformity to predetermined standards and criteria are exemplified. So quality assurance, we said it's an ongoing process. But when we talk about quality assessment, this is now where we collect the information now and we analyze the information. So quality assessment is a component, if I look at it, of quality assurance in a way. So this is where you collect data. We now look at what the data is, how people are writing, the analysis, how are people writing the nursing care plan, and we check to what extent does it conform to the standard or to the criteria, which is the model that you have written for them. So those are the 2 definitions for quality assurance and quality assessment. Then we move on to part B of the question. Discuss 7 principles of quality assurance. Discuss 7 principles of quality assurance. In an exam, they can ask you for 4 principles, but here I've just decided to explain the 7 qualities or the 7 principles of quality assurance. Now, the first one that we have is customer focus. With customer focus, the customer is always the most important factor for any business, which is why organizations need to understand current and future customer needs and aim to surpass their expectation. So as the first principle of quality assurance, principle number 1 is customer focus, which I've just explained. Principle number 2 is leadership. Now, leadership quality assurance principle also suggests that an organization needs leadership in order to have the purpose and direction in achieving quality. What it means is, For us to realize or for us to practice quality assurance, we need leaders who are going to enforce these standards. So number 2 is leadership. Number 3 principle is involvement of people. Involvement of people. Any organization needs to be able to put quality management training into practice. People at all levels of the business, they need to be motivated, committed, and fully involved in the organization. This principle of quality assurance involves people evaluating their own performance and identifying their constraints, as well as actively seeking opportunities. So for an organization to put in a very effective quality assurance policy or standards, you need to involve the people who are going to be involved in interacting with the customers or the clients, as is highlighted in principle number 1, customer focus. So you need to involve everyone. You need to involve the security. You need to involve the doctors. You need to involve the nurses. You need to involve the housekeepers so that they understand the standards that you are putting as an institution. So involvement of people is principle number 3. Principle number 4 is process approach. Process approach. In order to achieve the desired result, resources and activities should be managed as a process. The process should focus on resources, methods, and materials which affect the key activities within the business. In order to maintain quality assurance within a service or a product, risks, consequences, the impact on customers and suppliers, and other relevant parties should be continuously evaluated. So it is important for us to also consider process approach. So principle number 4, process approach. So basically, as an organization, you need to create processes. That is the way in which the work is to be done. For example, how do we admit? How do we write a nursing care plan? How do we take patients to theater? So you find that everything focuses on that process, and the people have to look at the whole issue in a process manner, not as individual things. So that is the process approach. The principle number 5 is system approach. System approach to management quality assurance training demonstrates how to create a structured system which is designed to achieve the organization's aim and objectives using the most effective and efficient methods. So after we have created processes, we also need to use systems approach, where you look at things as a system, not as an individual. So when you're evaluating quality, you're not evaluating individual performance, but you're looking at the whole system. That's the system approach. Then principle number 6 is continual improvement. Another quality assurance principle is that continual improvement should always be an objective of any business. What does it mean? Sometimes we notice that when people are writing the nursing care plans, there are some areas which are consistently appearing. There are some challenges which are coming out in the way people are writing the nursing care plans. So what do? As management, we identify a way in which we can improve the processes. Sometimes we can even get feedback from our customers who are our patients. Remember principle number 1, we said it's client focus. So when these clients give us feedback, we evaluate that feedback, and then we relook at the plans, we relook at the system, we relook at the methods, or we relook at the process approach. If the process is not as efficient as is possible, what do? We improve. So that is principle number 6, continual improvement. Then principle number 7, we have what's called the factual approach to decision making. This quality assurance principle simply ensures that decisions are based on analyzed data and information. So what does this mean? It means as a manager, when we are using quality assurance, we use facts to make decisions. So we analyze the data, we analyze the information that we have gathered in the implementation of the quality process for us to make decisions. Then we also have principle number 8, which is teamwork. Now, number 8, quality assurance focuses on participation and teamwork to solve problems and implement quality solutions, recognizing that the impact of quality assurance activity is most powerful when team members draw on the participation experience, and knowledge of major participants and stakeholders. So it is very, very important that when we are implementing quality assurance, teamwork is important. And principle number 9 is mutually beneficial supplier relationships. The quality management standards, for example, the ISO 9001, it encourages organizations to create mutually beneficial relations with its suppliers. So it is important that, for example, us as nurses, we use things which are supplied by different suppliers. These can be bandages, these can be BP machines. So what it means is, it's also the duty of us nurses to also identify the things that we require. We communicate with the managers so that they can procure those things which are easy for us to use. So basically, we are talking about the mutually beneficial supplier relationships. So in summary, we have got 9 principles of quality assurance, which I'm just going to summarize all of them. Number 1 principle is customer focus. Number 2 is leadership. Number 3 is involvement of the people. Number 4 is process approach. Number 5 is systems approach. Number 6 is continual improvement. Number 7 is factual approach to decision making. Number 8 is teamwork. And lastly, number 9 principle is mutually beneficial supplier relationships. So these were the expected principles of quality assurance. Now we move on to part C. Discuss 4 differences between quality assurance and quality improvement. Discuss 4 differences between quality assurance and quality improvement. I'm going to put up a table that will actually give us examples in terms of the differences, and to explain using that table. So looking at this table, we are now looking at as the question was saying, discuss the differences between quality assurance and quality improvement. I've put a table where there are about 5 differences that are there: quality improvement versus quality assurance. As you can see from the table, on the left there is quality improvement, and on the right there is quality assurance. For number 1, in quality improvement, the focus is what can we do to improve. These are the questions that we ask when we are at work in the department. What can we do to improve? What can we do to make sure that our patients are safe? What can we do to make sure that our patients are happy? But when we are looking at quality assurance, the question changes to what went wrong. So quality assurance focuses on finding the problem, whereas quality improvement, it focuses on ways to avoid the problem. Look at number 2. Quality improvement is proactive, meaning you take an initiative before something happens. Whereas if you look at quality assurance across, it is reactive, meaning something has happened and you are reacting to it. So quality improvement is proactive and quality assurance is reactive. Look at number 3. Quality improvement avoids blame, whereas quality assurance often is punitive. What does it mean? It means that if a nurse is to make a mistake in the department, if you are using quality improvement, we avoid blaming the nurse. We try to look at what are the factors that might have contributed. Whereas in quality improvement, you have to punish the nurse. Number 4, quality improvement fosters system change. Whereas quality assurance, it tries to find who was at fault. So if there is a problem, for example, a patient is given a wrong drug, when we use quality improvement, we look at what has caused the nurse to give the wrong drug. What is the problem in the system? Whereas in quality assurance, we try to find who gave the wrong drug and we give fault to that nurse. Number 5, quality improvement focuses on the entire system. Whereas in quality assurance, the focus is on a specific incident. So when we are talking about quality improvement, we are looking at the whole department, we are looking at the whole system, the whole nursing system. Whereas in quality assurance, we focus on specific incident. So if they are to give you a question to say, compare and contrast, or what is the differences between quality improvement and quality assurance, always remember this table. Quality improvement is proactive. quality assurance is reactive. Quality improvement, what can we do to improve? And in quality assurance, what went wrong? Quality improvement focuses on the entire system. Quality assurance focuses on specific incident. So this was the expected response for this question. So we move on to part D. We now move on to part D, which says discuss 5 types of assessments. Discuss 5 types of assessments. We have different types of assessments that we have, and the 5 of them, I'm going to list them below as follows. So on this question on 5 types of assessments, first of all, I'm going to describe or explain what quality assessment is. So quality assessment is the measure of the quality of a service or a product. And in the healthcare setting, quality assessment is the measure of the quality of care that is provided in a particular setting. And quality assessment is done by finding out if the requirements to provide quality services are available. It includes consulting or asking the beneficiaries whether they are happy with the services provided or not, and taking action to solve the problems that are contributing to the poor quality. So what does this mean? It means quality assessment, it is the measure of the quality of a service or a product. In nursing, we are saying we can have quality nursing care and we can actually have poor quality of nursing care. So when you talk about quality nursing care, we are talking about nursing care in which we follow the principles of nursing care, where we follow the standards that is expected of nursing care. For example, using the nursing process, where if we are to use the nursing process the way it is supposed to do, evaluating the outcomes of our care, then we can actually say we are providing quality nursing care. And the patients themselves, they will give us feedback. And when they give us feedback, what they tell us about the care we are giving them is what will determine whether the care we are giving them is quality or not. So we've got different ways in which we can assess the quality. And in this particular question, they wanted the 5 types of assessments, which we are going to look at in detail. The first type of assessment is called self-assessment. Self-assessment. This is the assessment which is done by an individual on themselves. So it's like you or me evaluating what I have done. A very good example is I have given a patient a painkiller. I've given them pethidine. They are in pain. They're coming from theater. They are post-operative. So I give them a painkiller. And after 30 minutes, I go back to ask the patient, are you still in pain or the pain has gone away? And the patient will tell me, no, I am still in pain. So what do I do as a nurse? I'll go back. Maybe I'll give this patient paracetamol, which is due. When I give this patient paracetamol, I will go back and check with the patient after 30 minutes. Are you still in pain? And the patient will say, no, the pain has gone. So when the time for discharge has come for this patient, the patient will be asked, were you happy with the way you were taken care of? And the patient will say, I was very happy. The nursing care was of good quality. But why was the nursing of good quality? Because myself as a nurse, I've been able to assess myself, identify a problem, and rectify the problem. So self-assessment is another way that is used in assessing quality. Number 2, we have what is called peer assessment. This is done by colleagues at the same level as yourself. What does it mean? It means myself, I am an enrolled nurse as an example. If I am an enrolled nurse, I do something and another enrolled nurse will come and assess what I have done. So it's more like people who are at the same level evaluating each other because they are peers, they're in the same grade. So that is what we call peer assessment. Then we have the third type, which is called quality survey. Quality survey. It is also another type of assessment that is done. Normally, in this type of assessment in quality survey, there's the use of questionnaires which define quality. So we use questionnaires, which are the ones that we are going to use to define quality. The fourth type of assessment is called an external interview. An external interview. In this external interview, we ask patients as they leave the health center about what was given to them. So it's like these patients, they write comments. They make an evaluation of the care that was done. So in this case, we have patients who are more like outsiders, who are external to the system, making an evaluation. So we call that an external interview. And then we have the fifth type, which is called equipment checklist. Equipment checklist. This is using a list of normal requirements. For example, having an inventory book. So actually, we can do a quality assessment by using the equipment checklist, using a list of normal requirements. For example, the inventory book. So these are some of the different ways in which quality assessment can be done in an institution. I will summarize the 5. The first one is self-assessment, which is done by an individual on themselves. The second one is peer assessment, which is done by colleagues at the same level as yourself. The third one is quality survey, where there's a use of questionnaires which define quality. The fourth one is external interview, where we ask patients as they leave the health center about what has been given to them, about the care that they have been given. And the fifth one is equipment checklist, where there's a use of normal requirements, e.g. having inventory book. So these were the expected answers for the 5 types of assessments. Then we move on to question E. Discuss the logistics management pipeline and the information flow under Zambian logistics and supply chain system. Discuss the logistics management pipeline and the information flow under Zambian logistics and supply chain system. This is a very difficult question. When it came the other year, I think most students had challenges in addressing this question. I have actually put up a diagram which I expect you guys to understand, and I'll explain using it, and I would encourage you guys to understand this flow diagram as well as the logistics cycle which was done in other video recordings. As you can see in the diagram, I have tried to draw a diagram. I hope you can see it clearly. It has got different levels. At the topmost, we have in a box Ministry of Health, written MOH, plus donors. These donors, they can be global fund, they can be USAID, they can be different donors that we have. So normally they work with the Ministry of Health, which is under the government of Republic of Zambia. So if you find that there are some arrows which are involved here, we've got arrows which are pointing downwards, and on the right you can see it shows the way in which product flow, the way in which the materials they flow, and the arrows which point upwards, they point at the way in which information flow. So information flows upwards and the products, they are flowing downwards. Below the MOH, we have in the bigger box, we've got what's called Medical Stores Limited. We know that the Medical Stores Limited is the one which is responsible for stocking, importing drugs, as well as other equipment, lab things that we use in our hospitals. And you find that within the big box of Medical Stores Limited, we have put a smaller box which is written Ministry of Health Logistics Management Unit. What it simply means is we have people who are from the MOH, which is at the top, who are working inside or who are working directly with the people in the Medical Stores Limited. So the Logistics Management Unit, these are the people who make sure that we have this equipment transported to different hospitals, provinces, using the vehicles. So these guys, they are involved in the logistics of resources from the MOH to different provinces and districts. So it works closely with the Medical Stores Limited. Then below it, on the left, on the right of this picture, there's the District Community Medical Office, DCMO, and you find that resources, they move from the Medical Stores Limited to the District Community Medical Office. And from the District Community Medical Office, the resources, they come down to health centers or NGO health facilities. And from the health centers, this is where we also help with our clients who are our patients. So that is another way in which resources can come to the patients. Also, we have resources coming from the Medical Stores Limited, which are coming on the left of this diagram, where the resources from the Medical Stores Limited, they go straight to the district hospitals, which can be level 1, level 2, and level 3. And from the district hospitals, level 1 and level 2 and level 3, we have these resources being assisted with the clients who are the patients at the bottom. And we have information coming from the clients or the patients. These are the things that they need in terms of the resources. So they communicate with the health centers on the right, they communicate with the district hospitals on the left, they move on upwards until the information reaches the Medical Stores Limited, and until the information reaches up the Ministry of Health, who in turn, they liaise with our donors. So that is how information and resources flow in the pipeline of information and resources of the Ministry of Health in Zambia. But if you look at on this diagram on the left, we have the provincial office, which is more like it's dotted. It plays a critical role between the Medical Stores Limited and the district level, but they don't have a direct effect. What they have is they coordinate the flow of this information. So if you are to be given a question on the pipeline and logistics cycle, please try to draw this diagram and explain the way I've tried to explain. Resources, they flow downwards. Information, it flows up, is indicated on the right, that small box on the right. Product flow downwards, information flow upwards. So this was the expected response on the question, which was discuss the logistics management pipeline and the information flow under Zambian logistics and supply chain system. So this is how information flows. This is how the supply chain is in terms of resources, from the top coming down and information coming from below going upwards. So let us try to draw this diagram and remember how it is done. I think that is all that was required of this question. Then we move on to the other question, which was question F. But question F is a repetition of question B. So we'll move on to question number 2. On question 2, list the 5 indications for change. List the 5 indications for change. But before we look at the indications for change, first of all, we need to define what change management is. So change management is a term which is used to refer to the introduction of new processes in an organization, or the management of people who are experiencing change in order to improve job performance or quality of service. So when we talk about change management, this is a term that we use to refer to the introduction of new processes in an organization, or the management of people who are experiencing change in order to improve job performance or quality of services. So what are the 5 indications for change? So change can be indicative, or change can come about where we have conflicts. So if we are to have a conflict can become an indication for change. Number 2, introduction of new technology can be an indication for change. Number 3, the changing needs of the society. For example, new diseases emerging. For example, we have COVID-19, which is a new disease. It has brought a number of changes within the health system and as a country as a whole. Number 4, change in service delivery system. What does this mean? It means sometimes we have new systems coming up on board. These systems can actually be indication for change. Number 5, fresh ideas and knowledge. The things which used to work 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they might not be working today. So fresh ideas and new knowledge can be an indication for change. Number 6, new case management processes and procedures can be indications for change. Number 7, the introduction of new drugs can be an indication for change. When we talk about the introduction of new drugs, for example, we talk about first-line HIV management, where we have new drugs that have actually been introduced. We have Gudolitograva, which is now part of the first-line management or in the delivery of ARVs. So in summary, the indications that we have for change, we have number 1, conflicts. Number 2, introduction of new technology. Number 3, changing needs of the society. For example, new diseases like COVID-19. Number 4, changes in service delivery system. Number 5, fresh ideas and knowledge. Number 6, new case management processes and procedures. And number 7, introduction of new drugs. Then we move on to part 2 of number 2, outline 3 stages of change. The 3 stages of change, we have unfreezing, number 2, changing, and number 3, refreezing. On the first stage of unfreezing, this involves making need for change so obvious so that it can be understood and be accepted easily by people who are affected by the same change. So this is where you explain the reasons why change has to happen, make people understand so that at least they can stop doing the things they used to do in the previous and prepare themselves for new things to come. Then we have changing. It is the stage of moving or implementing the change. A change agent may be needed to foster new values, attitudes, and behaviors. And the third stage is refreezing. In this stage, newly introduced change is reinforced, supported so that it becomes a new norm. So looking at these 3 changes, 3 stages, in the previous videos that I've recorded, I think I've explained in detail these different stages as well as the strategies which can be used. Then we move on to part B. Describe 4 steps you are going to take as a ward manager to effect change in your ward. Describe 4 steps you are going to take as a ward manager to effect change in your ward. Now on this one, the 4 steps that we are going to take are as follows. Number 1, number 1 step, number 1 is assessing the need for change. Assessing the need for change. You don't just change the system in a department, but you need to assess the need. As has been explained in the question, describe 4 steps you're going to take as a ward manager to effect change in your ward. So the first one is you assess the need for change. If there is no need for change, don't put any change. So first, you will assess the need for change through recognizing that a problem exists and identifying the problem source. In a ward setup, this will be done by identifying the gaps in nursing care and the causes of the problem, identifying the gaps in the ward procedures and daily routine by comparing with the recommended practice. So it is very, very crucial, first of all, to assess the need for change by looking at the gaps that are there as well as the causes of the problem. The second step is deciding on the need, deciding on the change that is needed to be made, deciding on the change that is needed to be made. Now, here you will decide on the change needed to be made by deciding what is the ward's ideal future state, as well as the obstacles that may occur during change. So you need to look at the needs. It's not the whole system that might need to be changed, but maybe a small aspect that might require some changing. So it is important to decide on the change that is needed to be made by deciding what is the ward's ideal future state, as well as the obstacles that may occur during the change. And the third is applying the change. This is where the action is. Here, you will apply the change and decide whether change will occur from the top down or bottom up. Then introduce and manage the change. So there are different ways in which we can introduce the change. We can introduce it from the top management coming down to the lower level, or we can introduce the change from the lower level going upwards. And the fourth one is evaluating the change. So after you have effected the change, it is important to evaluate the same change. This, you will evaluate the change by comparing the situation before and after the change, or using benchmarking. So basically, before you effected the change, you had what the problems were and the solution that you had. After the change, you now need to evaluate what is new versus what you removed. If you discover that the new things that you have put, they don't work, it simply means you have to revert to the old system. So in summary, the 4 steps that you are going to take in putting change in the department: number 1, assessing the need for change; number 2, deciding on the change needed to be made; number 3, applying the change; and number 4, evaluating the change. So this was the expected responses for part 2B. We now move on to question D. Explain 5 types of change. Explain 5 types of change. Now, for the 5 types of changes that we have, the first type I'm going to look at is planned change. We are looking at the 5 types of change, but here I'm going to outline 9 of them so that at least you understand all of them. So the first one is planned change. It's the change that you plan. Planned change. Planned change is also regarded as the developmental change. This is a type of change which is implemented with the objective of improving the present ways of operations and to achieve the predefined goals. Planned change is calculated and is not threatening, as the future state is being chosen consciously. What does this mean? It means with planned change, you sit down and you make a plan for this change and you put goals that you need to achieve. And one thing about this change is everything is calculated and it is not threatening for those people who are involved, because a conscious decision has been already determined on the future state, how we want things to be at the end. So this is the first type of change, planned change. You plan the change. You sit down, you put objectives, and you calculate the moves and you move towards them. The second one is accidental or reactive change. Accidental or reactive change. This is a type of change which takes place in response to an event or a chain of various events. Most of the organizations indulge in reactive change. This kind of change usually occurs when there is an increase or a decrease in the demand for the company's products or services. It can also be a response to a problematic situation or a crisis which an organization may be faced with. For example, due to the advancements in technology or growing technological changes, an organization may be forced to invest more in technology to stay ahead to face the stiff competition from other competitors. Recreation can also be regarded as a reactive change, which involves the entire organization and occurs during the stage when an organization is undergoing a serious crisis. A very good example of accidental or reactive change is the way in which we work in hospitals when COVID started. As you're all aware, when the COVID-19 started, you'll find that we had a number of changes which took place in the Ministry of Health, including the way nurses do their work. So that was accidental or reactive change. No one was prepared for that. So that's another type of change that we have. And then we have the third type, which is called happened change. Happened change. HAPPENED change. This kind of change happens when an organization reaches the plateau stage in its life cycle and gets victimized by the environmental pressures or demands. For example, currency devaluation may adversely affect the business of those organizations who have to depend upon importing of raw materials largely. In certain cases, some political as well as social changes are unpredictable and uncontrollable. This kind of change is unpredictable in nature and usually take place due to the impact of the external factors. Happened change is profound and can be traumatic as its consequences are unknown and out of direct control. So with happened change, this is where, for example, we have a change in government in terms of politics, and another government comes into power, and then they will change a number of things, policies, procedures, and some of these issues, they will end up affecting the organization. And when they start affecting the organization, this type of change, things have already happened and you don't have control over them. So basically, it is very traumatic as the consequences are unknown and out of direct control. You don't have control over them because they've already happened. They are outside the organization. You don't have control over them. Then we have the fourth type, which is called anticipatory change. Anticipatory change, this is a type of change that occurs with prior anticipation of the happening of an event or a chain of events. Organizations may either tune in or reorient themselves as an anticipatory measure to face the environmental pressures. So anticipatory change, what happens here is it's a change that we put or that occurs with the prior anticipation of the happening of an event. So we know that something is going to happen and we start preparing for that thing to happen. A very good example is the way COVID-19 started. You find that there were a lot of changes that happened within Zambia itself. There were a lot of changes that happened within the health services itself. So because it started in Wuhan in China and most European countries were affected, America was affected, and you notice that Africa was the last continent to be affected. You find that most governments, including Zambia included, you find that they were anticipating COVID-19 to come to Zambia, and they started making some changes in anticipation of the coming of that same event. So that is an example of anticipatory change. Then we move on to number 5 type of change, which is called incremental change. Incremental change. This is a type of change which is implemented at a micro level, units or subunits of an organization. Incremental changes are introduced or implemented gradually and are adaptive in nature. It is based on the assumption that these small changes will ultimately result in a large change and establish the basics for forming a much healthier and a robust system. It even offers an opportunity for an organization to learn from its very own experiences and create the adaptive mechanisms for meeting the ultimate organizational vision. The extent of damage due to a failed incremental change effort is expected to be much lesser than the change which is implemented on a large scale or introduced universally. What does this mean? In incremental change, we are introducing changes in small bits and pieces. A very good example, let's say we want to change the way we do the nursing process. We will not start this using the whole country because it will be a disastrous. What we start is, we start with a province, and within a province, we start with a certain station, a certain health center. They'll start using a different nursing process. If they are doing it very well, we are going to introduce another health center in that district. If they are doing it very well, we introduce the third one. If they are doing very well, we introduce the whole district. If the whole district is doing well, we now move on to the other province, another district. So basically, we are introducing change, but it's in small steps. if we get any problems at any step, it is easier to manage at a lower level. So that is what it means when we talk about incremental change. Then we have the sixth one, which is called operational change. Operational change, as the name implies, it means introducing changes in the existing operations for realizing the intended goals. This may include bringing in changes in the current technology, improving or re-engineering the existing work processes, improving the distribution framework or the product delivery, better quality management, and improving the coordination at an interdepartmental level. This kind of change becomes a requirement or the need when an organization is faced with competitive pressure, as a result of which the focus is laid more on quality improvement or improvement in the delivery of services for an edge over the competitors. What it simply means on operational changes, we are saying we are putting changes in the way that we operate. Let's say we have two hospitals. We have UTH and we have Levi Mwanawasa. You find that Levi Mwanawasa, because it has got new buildings, it will start operating more efficient than UTH. Why? Because they've introduced some technologies. They've introduced some systems which will make the system very efficient. So for UTH to operate at the same level as Levi Mwanawasa, they also need to change the way they do their operations. So they need to do an operations change for them to match the new equipment, the new technology, the new systems that have been put at Levi Mwanawasa. So that is what we call by operational change. Then the seventh one, we have what's called strategic change. Strategic change is usually implemented at the organizational level, which may affect the various components of an organization and also the organizational strategy. A change in the management style in an organization could be considered as an example of strategic change. So this is where we are changing strategy. We are changing the top management of an institution. Then we have what is called total change. Total change involves the change in the organizational vision and striking a harmonious alignment with the organizational strategy, employees' morale and commitment, as well as with the business performance. Total change becomes a requirement during those circumstances when an organization is faced with many criticalities such as long-term business failure, incongruences between the employee and the organizational values, failure of leaders or managers in anticipating the realities of business environment, or the growing competitive pressures and concentration of power in the hands of a few. And the last one is fundamental change. Fundamental change essentially involves the redefinition of organizational vision or mission. This may be required during extremely volatile circumstances like volatility in the business environment, failure of the leadership, a decline in productivity, as well as the overall turnover or problems with the morale of the employees. So in summary, the types of changes that we have planned change. Number 2, accidental or reactive change. Number 3, happened change. Number 4, anticipatory change. Number 5, incremental change. Number 6, we have operational change. Number 7, strategic change. Number 8, total change. And number 9, fundamental change. So these were the expected responses. This question was looking at 5 types, but I've given you 9 types so that at least you have them. If they're to come in any different way, you'll be able to answer them correctly. So ladies and gentlemen, these were the expected responses on this section where we looked at quality assurance and change. I'm now moving on to theories of management, principles of management, and delegation, which will be in a different video from this one. So stay tuned and check on the next video where we are focusing on question 3, theories of management, principles of management, and delegation. I hope the explanations are clear. If there are areas which are not clear, I encourage you to send me in the group so that I focus on those areas and assist you accordingly.